Kevin Durant is not the problem with the Phoenix Suns, but is trading him the solution? We're unpacking it on another edition of Southwest Bias.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.
Of course, brought to you by Brandon Bills. Elevate your brand with Brandon Bills, the perfect headwear and apparel. Both Espo and I are rocking it right now. Use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. The NBA world is on fire, Espo, not just with actual trades, Luka, De'Aaron, but with hypothetical trades.
But you don't throw Kuz in there too?
Oh, and Kuz. Who could forget big Kyle Kuzma to the Milwaukee Bucks? Actually, interesting move. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Kevin Durant, who actually was just ruled out, according to Chris Haynes, for tonight's game against the Oklahoma City Thunder with a left ankle sprain. But of course, that has opened up a whole lot of talk because there's been a mountain of reporting about how Kevin Durant to Golden State, Phoenix trading Kevin Durant has picked up a lot of steam in the last 24 to 36 hours. Are you surprised at the amount of traction this is getting, Espo?
No, I was talking to somebody last night that said multiple teams have indicated that this is real, and they actually think that Kevin Durant, there's a very good chance he winds up in Golden State. So there's too much smoke for this not to be real. I think there's multiple things because we heard the Nurk rumor to Washington yesterday that didn't make sense by itself. We're now hearing from John Gambadoro that Bradley Beal isn't necessarily unwilling to waive his no-trade clause, and then you're hearing everything with the Warriors and KD, and Jimmy Butler still in the mix here. I think there are going to be multiple things, if they can pull it off, that happen in sequence that create a very large change with the Suns, because I believe they're in reboot mode, not rebuild, right? This is not tear it down to the studs, get some draft picks. This is reboot, get pieces that can work around Devin Booker, but also give you flexibility to make subsequent moves in the offseason if you feel like the mix isn't right, to give you more flexibility to get to that contending spot. Matt Ishbia not going to stop trying to contend.
And I don't want him to stop trying to contend. And that's why, in my opinion, you don't trade Kevin Durant. If you're right, and they're looking and they have a move for Beal lined up and a move for Nurk lined up and maybe a trade for Grayson. If you really are looking to retool this team right now, I don't believe that the best player should be a part of that. It's only under the circumstances of, let's unpack a trade package that you sent in our diehard Discord. If you're not a diehard with PHNX Sports, you can do that over to gophnx.com. But we talk ball on our Discord all the time, plus so much more to become a diehard. And you put a trade in there that was, if I'm wrong, correct me, Andrew Wiggins, Jonathan Kuminga, Brandon Podemski, Trace Jackson-Davis, 2 first-round picks for Kevin Durant.
Let's be clear. I was just messing with the trade machine to see what numbers work. Could be Draymond.
So which one of those would you want? Because to me, those packages, whether they include Draymond or they don't, signifies what direction you're going in if you're trying to trade KD.
You're trying to get younger with more shooting, with flexibility to trade additional deals to go big game hunting again. That's what it's about. If you're going to reboot at this point. And I don't think I think these are deals that you're talking about that have to happen together. Like, well, they can't aggregate salaries. I think this may be a domino. All these teams know what's going on. We're going to make this move. Then we're going to make this subsequent move with you. Then we're going to make this subsequent move with the Warriors or whatever the case may be. And they're all contingent on each other. It's not we have a Bradley Beal deal that works in a vacuum and we can keep KD. I think they're looking at a larger way to circumvent these rules, and that's why you brought in a guy like Matt Tellem to get creative. That's where I think this team is. And let's be frank, KD has been great. KD has been KD. This team is a 500 basketball team. They've been infuriating for almost 2 years now in this. At some point, stop banging your head against the wall and figure out a way to get out of basketball purgatory and keep yourself in contention. Maybe you're not in direct contention this year, which you aren't right now, but it gives you building blocks to make those moves in the offseason to actually get there. Like, at some point, you're trapped right now, and you have to get as creative as possible to get to a point where there's actually a light at the end of the tunnel. You're like a Shawshank Redemption. You're hitting that cement wall, trying to build that hole, hiding it behind a poster till you can crawl through the sewage drain to see that light again.
Mhm.
And each of these rumors, I think, is a little bit of that hammer hitting that wall, trying to figure out how do we tie together a much larger thing to get to that potential brighter future.
You and I agree. In a principle, you and I agree it's how to approach or to solve that problem that we disagree. And I think that's fine. I think there's no way that everybody's going to agree on one thing. But I do think that everybody acknowledges with the Suns that what's going on right now is not A, what they set out to do, B, what their payroll should reflect, and C, enjoyable for anybody to watch right now. I think the worst thing that you could do as the Phoenix Suns is nothing. And I want to put that out
100%.
there. I think nothing is the worst thing you can do. I think the second worst thing you can do is not look and try to move all the other pieces besides Kevin Durant if Kevin Durant still wants to be here. Now, if Kevin Durant doesn't want to be here, if Devin Booker is fine with the direction that you're going in if you trade Kevin Durant, then that conversation opens up a little bit more for me. But Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, when they play together, have a really good record, a great winning record, especially without Bradley Beal playing, right? We saw those two with a depleted roster take the eventual champions to 6 games deeper than anybody else before. I get it. Overall, in the Kevin Durant era, the Phoenix Suns have not been who we thought they were supposed to be. But for me, Kevin Durant is not the main culprit of that. Sure, he is a part of it. He's a part of the team. He's the biggest part of the team. He's the best player on the team. But unless you're moving him for something that to me is franchise altering as far as your direction, if you're still trying to win championships, which is what Matt Ishbia has said he is going to try and do, if that is the case, then you do everything possible to build around KD and Book. And if you can't do that, if there's really no path out there, then maybe consider it. But if what you're saying is true, which is, maybe they go with a KD move and a Beal move and a Nurk move, then to me, it's like, I'd rather try those latter two and hold on to
but
KD.
The point is, I don't think you can do two without the other. I think what's going on right now and what we're hearing and all these things is because you are at a point where your two options might very well be do nothing or trade Kevin Durant and potentially Bradley Beal as part of a larger interconnected move.
So
you're not going to lean in to listening to Kevin Durant deals and knowing it's going to get public unless you are prepared to go down that path and you feel like there may not be other options. Because the last thing you want is a pissed off Kevin Durant if you're not actually going to make that kind of move. I think they're backed into a corner and trying to figure out the best way to navigate this without having to blow it up and go to the hopium of draft picks.
Yeah, I think going full in for the rebuild is a pretty awful direction for this team to go into. And I know there are some people who have been begging for that. I think it's a big case of grass is always greener. And not like it's not, fun at some moments for draft prospects and whatnot. But here's the thing. If the other two trades are contingent on trading Kevin Durant, that's interesting. But my question is, why are they contingent? In this scenario, is it because you're shedding some of the assets that you're getting from KD to move those two? Because now I'm totally out.
No. I think what it is there's pieces that you have to get from each to make each move work, right? And if they don't come together cohesively, none of it is going to work because they've banged their head against the wall with Miami trying to figure out a deal and involving Bradley Beal, right? So it shifts, but we still hear they're in on Jimmy Butler. Well, my guess is they have to get super creative on all fronts. And it all has to be contingent because you have such limited resources that Bradley Beal and 3 first-round picks from Utah, with all these swaps or whatever tied to them, isn't going to get the primary function done that you want. So now you're going to have to accumulate assets with multiple deals, move multiple things around to get to the place that you hope to get. In a perfect world, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Jimmy Butler is probably your best outcome in this. But I don't think you're living anywhere near a perfect world because if you were, that deal's done 2.5 weeks ago, and we're not talking about this stuff. I think that's the reality of the situation, and desperate people do desperate things, but also on the KD front and the Book front, you got to look at it and you got to go, at what point is it just not going to happen, right? And I think some people are at that point. I think other people still think it can work. if you get certain things, but you don't really have a path to do much more than you've done with this roster, at this point, to add anything, unless the skies open up. Pat Riley goes, you know what? I've had a change of heart. I'll take Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal goes, Miami's where I've always wanted to be, and you make that trade. But to me, if that was going to happen, I think we would have heard more positive movement towards that before this.
I do doubt that somehow landing a big three of Butler, KD, and Book is pretty far out of the question. Now, trading Kevin Durant and somehow getting Jimmy Butler in return, that's also something that's been floated out there in a direct deal. And let's unpack that after I remind everybody that, of course, this edition of Southwest Bias is brought to you by Branded Bills, the perfect headwear and apparel. You can use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. And what can you get with your first order? I'm glad you asked. Snapback, truckers, fitted, beanies, or tees. Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. And if you're looking for some gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd, like Espo, who's wearing our PHNX branded Bills, beautiful. You can do that with our friends over there. They're a local company out of Mesa, Arizona, partnerships with us, PHNX, ASU, and schools like U of A. Again, head to brandedbills.com, use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. And with all these news and rumors coming out on the timeline, and listen, even during an ad read, it's hard not to check your phone and say, did Kevin Durant get traded, right?
It kept buzzing, and I had to make sure that we didn't just waste 20 minutes. So.
Waste 20 minutes would have been awesome, but guess what? Maybe you don't want to be, unable to check your phone while you're riding around. Well, you can't do it while you're driving. Get into a Waymo, right? Because Waymos are autonomous. They're not driverless. They are operated by a Waymo driver that's just not in your all-electric Jaguar I-Pace that has taken over 150,000 trips around San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Phoenix weekly. It is a fantastic way to get around the valley. It is safe. It is affordable. Waymo has over 40 million miles of real-world driving experience, and that's enough to drive to the moon and back 80 times.
I love it so much. I wish I could just buy a Waymo.
That'd be sick.
Where I never had to drive
Waymo?
again, and it was just in my garage, and I used the app. That's how much I love Waymo.
Yeah. You know what? Maybe we can offer that to Bradley Beal and wherever he goes.
I mean, for 50+ million, you probably could make that happen.
And KD can take one when he goes back to the Warriors because it operates in San Francisco. Download the Waymo One app and ride today. There is reporting while we've been on here, Howard Beck saying people around the league believe that Kevin Durant is getting traded. It just continues, Espo, over and over and over again. And you mentioned Jimmy Butler, and there has been the idea floated out there, since Miami doesn't want Bradley Beal, would they want Kevin Durant? The answer is obviously yes, they would. In a situation where you are trading Kevin Durant for Jimmy Butler, unless you are getting 2 to 3 draft picks back, I can't go for that, because if you're trading KD for a worse, similar age star that's going to make the same amount of money, I don't know if that's a winning move.
It's not going to be that. Put the breadcrumbs together, right? Jimmy Butler had told the Warriors he wouldn't go there, and there was supposedly some real interest between Miami and Golden State. The Suns want him. Golden State wants KD. You're starting to see how. So if the Suns are still,
still trading Kevin Durant and ending up with Butler, I need draft compensation.
Well, but I think there's probably more that comes with it. Like, again, a lot of people are making a judgment on this move before we've even seen any piece of it, right? I think there will be multiple layers coming from multiple places that isn't just going to simply be you swapped deck chairs where it's Jimmy Butler for Kevin Durant and you're still having Bradley Beal and it's Devin Booker and it's the same supporting cast. If you do that, I don't think it makes a lot of sense, right? But I think there are, as much as I hate this saying, layers to this, and that's where we're going to wind up. And people are going to look and go, that was one of the most insane 24-hour periods in Suns history because this roster looks significantly different, you know? And I don't know that it gets to the finish line, but I think that's probably what's cooking. I think we got a Heisenberg situation where they're in the lab,
Well, and if you're trading Kevin Durant, again, even if you're getting Jimmy Butler, I need a young piece along with that. And according to reports, the Suns want, quote, essentially everything of future value from the Warriors in a Kevin Durant trade. And that's the one thing. I don't think a lot of these leaks are coming from the Suns end. Personally, I feel like a lot of it is going to be coming from the Warriors end. So they could be like, hey, Steph, we tried, right?
Yeah.
We tried to get Kevin Durant. We tried to, go and acquire a star. And to kind of put a bow on things, because obviously, Espo, both of us, we don't know what's going on. We can only, talk about it. And stop me if I'm speaking wrong for you. But Kevin Durant has not been an inherent problem with the Phoenix Suns. He has been their best player. He's an incredibly talented player, and he is one of the best players of all time. Do we agree? We're on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been an inherent problem. I honestly, outside of Yusuf Nurkic, I don't think anybody's been an inherent problem. I think you've just built a Frankenstein that doesn't really work.
And so you feel like, and again, I'm just asking, I'm not putting words in your mouth. You feel like the only way for the Suns, or the best way for the Suns, the realistic way for the Suns to get out of this mess, is to move on from Kevin Durant, despite all those positives that he brings.
No, the best move is Bradley Beal being able to get you Jimmy Butler back and trying to run it with KD, Book, and Butler, and then deciding whether that's a plausible path for the future and to being in title contention. But I don't think that door's open.
There you go.
And at that point, like you said, standing pat and doing nothing is the worst possible thing, because you're going to get more of the same.
Yeah, I don't want to stand pat and I don't want to do nothing, but I do have a problem with trading Kevin Durant is tough. Like, you have to balance out, for me specifically, the fan side of it, the emotion side of it. I mean, before Kevin Durant came to the Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant has been one of my favorite basketball players, the same way he's been half of the league's favorite basketball player, Devin Booker's favorite basketball player, since the moment that he stepped in to the Supersonics, right? He has been that guy, and to see him on a night-to-night basis elevate this team, whether it's in the clutch, whether it was in the playoffs for that Denver run as well, when him and Book were going off, it's just hard for me, and maybe I'm blind with my purple-colored glasses, to not see a world where you can contend for a championship with Kevin Durant. But with the way the rest of this roster is constructed, if you can't shift that around him, you have to shift him. And I don't like that, and I don't want that. And to be honest with you, it's going to take one hell of a package in return for KD for me to feel like trading what we traded for him is worth it in the long run if you give up on it now. Because look at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I get it, younger, but how many times did people say that couldn't work? Oh, the roster doesn't work around them. Oh, the duo doesn't work. It takes time sometimes to figure these things out.
What did they do? They made major trades to add Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis around him. Guess what? Those avenues aren't available.
No, but you already took one of those avenues to trade for Bradley Beal. It just didn't work out.
And you tried. And now, you got to trust those eyes behind your purple-colored glasses and accept what we've seen is what it is here, right? And to me, I've enjoyed Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant, I've said it before, is a top 5 NBA player with how well he's scored. But I've seen individual greatness in Phoenix. I don't want to see that. I don't want to just see individual greatness anymore. I want to see a championship. I want to be on a path for that. And right now, I don't see that path again unless Bradley Beal is willing to move and you can get a Jimmy Butler, and maybe you have a path. But if that's not going to happen, I don't see a path, and you've got to find a way to dynamite your way into a path. And I think that that's unfortunately the KD situation now.
What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below. Do you want Kevin Durant traded? Do you want him to stay? What would be your ideal trade package for Kevin Durant? Actually, let me ask you that. What if they are trading Kevin Durant? I know you said you were messing around, right? What to you, even if it's not specific players, are you more Butler and a pick and a tangential piece? Are you more give me the picks and the young players? What's ideal for you in trading KD?
Some younger 3-point shooting or athletic guys, one kind of guy that can definitely be a centerpiece with you right now to go along with Booker, whether that's Draymond, that's Jimmy, some name we haven't seen, and some draft capital, I think is where I feel better, because then I go, okay, you got a guy that is still out there running with Book. You've got some depth now, but you also have depth and more draft picks that you can trade to try to make a subsequent move in the offseason if you don't feel like your new mix is actually going to put you where you need to be. It's all about flexibility and trying to figure out how do you reboot, because I do not want to rebuild. I do not need to see draft picks and play the ping pong ball game. I want a path to try to figure out how do you stay in contention over the next handful of years in the West.
You heard it from GM Spo. Right there. Walk that tightrope. Walk that fine line. Find a way to semi-rebuild, get a little younger, retool, still compete. tough task for the Phoenix Suns. Do you think they get it done? Let us know down in the comments below. If you are listening on audio, thank you so much. Make sure you rate us 5 stars wherever you are listening to us. And a reminder to everybody, we're still doing pre and post game shows for every single game. We will have a trade deadline special on Thursday, 30 minutes before the trade deadline is over. You can check in with this channel right here. We will be live breaking down not only the Suns moves, but every move in the West, as the NBA has shifted quite a bit over the last week and a half. All of this after the first domino, the Nick Richards trade, went down. Who would have believed it? You can follow Espo at Espo. You can follow me at ERIKRUBY. If you want to follow along with our Suns content, you can do so at PHNX_Suns. And of course, you can subscribe to PHNX Sports, not just for our wonderful Suns content, but Mercury, Diamondbacks, ASU, U of A, Cardinals, everything in between, everything about the Valley, all in one convenient place just by hitting that subscribe button and turn those notifications on. We will see you once again later this week for another edition of Southwest Bias.
Get that stuff out of here! It's Southwest Bias!